After Mr. Vincent and his wife, Cynthia, got married, they hoped to have a child quickly. But things did not happen the way they expected. 5 long years passed. 5 years of tears, prayers, and painful nights before they finally welcomed their daughter, Rachel. When Rachel came, it felt like a miracle. They couldn't stop thanking God. They had almost lost hope, but God remembered them. One peaceful evening, after dinner, they all lay in bed. Little Rachel slept between her parents. Mr. Vincent kept staring at his daughter with a soft smile on his face. Cynthia looked at him and smiled too. "What's making you smile like this tonight?" she asked quietly. "Cindy, who would have believed we would ever become parents?" Mr. Vincent said, still staring at Rachel. "Do you remember everything we went through?" "Remember?" Cynthia repeated. "How can I ever forget?" Her voice shook as she continued. "I was called a barren woman. People mocked me for 5 whole years. Friends gave me all kinds of advice. Old women called me aside and whispered their strange solutions. Doctors kept giving different explanations every time we visited. People pointed fingers when I walked past. Even women in church mocked me. Some called me the fair barren." A tear slipped down her cheek. "One day, a woman told me to my face that I was a man, and that was why I couldn't give my husband children. I almost took my life because of that shame." Mr. Vincent reached out and held her hand. "It's okay. All of that is in the past now," he said softly. "God has given us Rachel, our bundle of joy." Cynthia wiped her face. "Her 7th birthday is next week. Our daughter will be 7 years old." They both smiled and looked at Rachel, who was sleeping peacefully between them. After a few moments, Mr. Vincent stretched out his hand, turned off the light, and kissed his wife good night. The next day, Mr. Vincent got so busy at work that he lost track of time. He didn't realize it was time to bring Rachel home from school. It was a weekend, and he was always the one who picked her on weekends. 40 minutes passed after dismissal, and he had still not arrived with Rachel. Cynthia began to worry. She waited a little longer, thinking traffic might be the cause. But after more minutes passed, she called her husband. Mr. Vincent was shocked. He hadn't noticed that almost an hour had gone by. He begged Cynthia to hurry and go get Rachel since he was still stuck at work. Cynthia immediately dropped what she was doing and rushed out. She was already 55 minutes late. The journey to Rachel's school took another 15 minutes. She entered a bus, hoping to get there quickly. But after 5 minutes, the bus ran into heavy traffic. Cars were not moving. The road looked like it was frozen in place. Panicking, Cynthia came down from the bus. She planned to take a bike, since bikes could maneuver through tight traffic. She hurried and flagged down a bike rider. But just as she was about to climb on, she suddenly remembered. Her purse was still inside the bus she came down from. Her purse had her money, and even worse, her phone. Confused and anxious, Cynthia told the bike man to go. She walked back quickly, searching for the bus. But she couldn't find it anywhere. It seemed the bus had turned around like the others. She placed her hands on her head. She had no money, no phone, and no way to call her husband. The only thing she could do was walk all the way to the school under the harsh sun. Meanwhile, at the school, Rachel sat outside with a few classmates who were also waiting for their parents. Some were picked one after another. Others went home with older siblings. Rachel watched everyone leave and wondered if her father had forgotten her. "Rachel, is your dad not coming today?" one classmate asked before leaving with her mother. Rachel was tired and hungry. She hadn't eaten anything during break because she did not like the food Cynthia packed in her lunchbox. After waiting too long, she made a decision. "I will go home by myself," she whispered. She picked up her school bag and her lunchbox and started walking home alone. A few minutes later, her lunchbox slipped from her hand and rolled into the main road. Rachel rushed to pick it up without looking. A man nearby shouted, "Little girl, Stop. A speeding car was approaching. The driver stepped on the brakes quickly, but it was too late. The car hit Rachel. The driver jumped out immediately and saw her lying on the road, bleeding, almost lifeless. Before people could gather, he carried Rachel into his car, reversed sharply, and sped off. Cynthia continued walking, searching for the bus she had left her purse in, but it was nowhere to be found. More buses turned around to take another route because of the traffic. Her chest tightened with fear. She couldn't reach her husband. She couldn't pay for a bike. She was helpless. She decided to trek straight to the school. After several minutes under the burning sun, she finally reached the school gate, sweating like someone who had run a long race. The place was too quiet. No children, no noise, only silence. Her only hope was that Rachel was still inside. She noticed the gate wasn't locked. She reached out to push it open. Just then, she saw the headmistress coming out, holding a padlock, ready to close the gate. "Good afternoon, Ma," Cynthia said, trying to force a small smile even though she was breathing heavily. "Good afternoon, my dear. Why are you sweating like this?" the headmistress asked, staring at her in surprise. "I'm sorry. I'm so late," Cynthia said, looking around anxiously. "It looks like everyone has gone already." "Yes," the headmistress replied. "It's already 4 p.m. And today is Friday. We close early." Cynthia's heart raced. "What about my daughter?" she asked sharply, her eyes fixed on the headmistress as she closed the gate. The headmistress blinked. "Your daughter? There's no one here anymore. Why not call your husband and ask if he has taken her? He usually picks her up on Fridays." No, he can't tell me to come pick her if he already did," Cynthia said, panic slowly rising inside her. "I know my husband very well." "Then call him," the headmistress suggested gently. Cynthia shook her head helplessly. "That's the problem. I can't. I was rushing, and I left my purse inside the bus during the traffic. My phone was inside. The little money I had is gone too. I just wanted to pick Rachel first before thinking of my phone." The headmistress frowned. "Then how did you pay the first bus driver when you came down?" "I had some money in my hand already, and I just—" Cynthia shook her head again. The fear in her voice cracked. "Ma, please, my phone is not the issue right now. Where is my daughter? Where is Rachel?" Her voice trembled as she asked the question. The headmistress quickly pulled out her phone and handed it to her. "Hey, call your husband. Let's confirm if he came for her." Cynthia grabbed the phone with shaky hands and dialed Mr. Vincent's number. He picked up immediately. "Cindy, I've been calling you. Why weren't you picking?" "Are you home with Rachel?" he asked with worry in his voice. Cynthia swallowed hard. "Home? She's not here. I came to the school, and she is not here." There was a sharp silence. Mr. Vincent could not understand what he was hearing. "What? What do you mean Rachel is missing?" "I'm coming now," he shouted, and ended the call. Cynthia felt her chest tighten. Tears gathered in her eyes. "Where's my daughter?" she whispered in a broken voice, looking at the headmistress. The headmistress had no answer. She looked just as shocked. Quickly, she tried to calm Cynthia down. She called the teacher in charge of Rachel's class and told her to return to the school immediately because a pupil was missing. Cynthia's tears flowed nonstop. How would she even begin searching for her only child? She kept turning around, looking everywhere, hoping, praying, to see Rachel walking toward her. A few minutes later, the teacher arrived, looking confused and scared. The headmistress asked, "Who picked Rachel today?" The teacher shook her head. Rachel was with her best friend, Anita, outside. "I saw Anita's mother come to pick her. After a while I didn't see Rachel anymore. I thought her father took her, as usual." Cynthia's voice broke. "Please, Call Anita's mother. Maybe Rachel followed them home. Please." The teacher quickly scrolled through her contacts, searching for Anita's mother's number. Just then, Mr. Vincent arrived, jumping down from a bike and running toward them. Before anyone could talk, a call entered the headmistress's phone. She answered. "Hello." A man's voice said, "Madam, I think one of your students had an accident a few minutes ago." The headmistress's heart dropped. She stepped aside so the couple wouldn't hear her immediately. She asked for the child's description. Everything the caller described matched Rachel. Her hands shook slightly as she lowered the phone. How would she tell this couple that their only child had been in a terrible accident? How would she explain that the driver carried her away and no one knew where? She looked at Mr. Vincent, who was holding Cynthia as she cried uncontrollably. At that same moment, it seemed Anita's mother finally picked up the teacher's call and confirmed that Rachel was not with them. The headmistress felt a tear escape her eye, confusion, fear, pity all mixed together. She just stared at them, unable to speak. Earlier, when Rachel was hit by the speeding car, the man who knocked her down came out immediately. He saw her lying on the road, almost lifeless. Without thinking twice, he lifted her gently and rushed her into his car. He reversed fast and drove off with fear in his chest. He prayed, "God, please, let this child not die before we reach the hospital." The man was Mr. Collins, a businessman who had only come to this town for a short visit. He was on the phone with a business partner, lost in the conversation, and didn't notice Rachel running after her lunchbox. He only heard a loud cry too late. Before he could hit his brakes properly, the accident had already happened. Shocked and shaking, he carried Rachel into his car. He didn't want to waste 1 second. He wanted to save her life at all cost. What kind of temptation is this? Mr. Collins muttered as he sped down the road. Sweat poured down his face. His hands shook on the steering wheel. He pushed the car to its highest speed. When he reached the nearest hospital, he rushed Rachel inside. Blood was already coming out from her mouth and head. It looked like her head had hit the iron in front of his Jeep before she fell. The nurses quickly took charge. The doctor, who was attending to another patient, ran out when he heard an emergency had arrived. Mr. Collins paced up and down the hospital corridor. His heart was racing. He didn't know what to say, what to do, or how the parents would react if anything went wrong. Minutes passed. Long, painful minutes. Finally, the doctor stepped out with a sad expression. Mr. Collins walked up to him immediately. "Doctor, please, how is she?" The doctor shook his head slowly. "Sir, the accident was very severe. She has internal bleeding in her brain. We have tried to control it with drugs, but she needs immediate surgery." "Surgery?" Mr. Collins almost shouted. "Go ahead and do it. Money is not the problem. I will sign whatever you need. Please, don't let that little girl die." The doctor sighed. "I'm sorry, sir. We can't. Our hospital does not have the equipment for that kind of surgery. She must be taken somewhere else." Mr. Collins felt cold. He didn't know the area at all. He didn't know where the big hospitals were. He only knew one thing. He couldn't let the girl die. He asked the doctor, "Can I take her on a 4 to 5 hour journey? To my city? I know where to treat her there." The doctor hesitated, then nodded. He gave Mr. Collins written notes, instructions, and another injection for Rachel to help her survive the trip. Mr. Collins carried Rachel out again and prepared for the long drive. Back at Rachel's school. "So," the headmistress called in a soft voice. Cynthia and Mr. Vincent quickly turned to her. "I just received a call," she whispered. "Your daughter Rachel was involved in an accident." Cynthia's heart exploded with fear. "My daughter had an accident? Where? Where?" she screamed, grabbing the headmistress's arms. "A few minutes down the street," the headmistress answered. Cynthia didn't wait for another word. She ran immediately toward the direction of the accident. Mr. Vincent ran after his wife, fear gripping him. When they reached the scene, bystanders told them. The man who hit her carried her away. Maybe he took her to a hospital. No one knew which hospital. The teacher, the headmistress, and the couple stopped a taxi and headed to the nearest one. Inside the taxi, Mr. Vincent wanted to shout at the headmistress, at himself, at the situation, but deep down he knew he was the one who forgot the time. Cynthia held him tightly, crying uncontrollably. The headmistress and teacher prayed silently that Rachel was alive. At the first hospital, Cynthia rushed inside. Please, did you see a little girl in school uniform who had an accident? The nurses checked. No record. They rushed to the second hospital. Nothing again. At the third hospital, the nurses finally said, Yes, someone brought a little girl like that. Please wait while we confirm which ward she is in. Cynthia felt a small relief. Thank you. God, please let my Rachel be okay. They all waited anxiously until a doctor walked out. Cynthia ran to him. Doctor, where is my daughter? How is she? Please, let me see her. Mr. Vincent added, Yes, doctor, please, can we see her now? The doctor looked at them carefully. Are you the parents of the little girl? Yes, we are, they replied quickly. The doctor breathed in deeply. His face fell. I'm very sorry. Your daughter was in a very serious accident. She was bleeding from her head, and when I examined her closely, I discovered she has internal brain bleeding. Cynthia screamed. Internal bleeding? Where is she? I want to see her. Please. The doctor continued gently. Ma, she needed an operation immediately. But our hospital does not have the equipment. The man who brought her, he decided to take her to a bigger city for treatment. Cynthia grabbed the doctor's coat. Which city? Which city? Do you have his number? The doctor shook his head sadly. I don't know the city he comes from. And I don't have his number. Cynthia turned slowly to her husband. Then her legs gave way. She collapsed on the hospital floor and fainted. The nurses and the teacher rushed to revive her. When Cynthia finally woke up in the hospital, she burst into loud tears immediately. She grabbed her chest as if her heart was tearing apart. Why me? Why Rachel? She cried. God, after 5 years of waiting, after 5 years of begging you, you gave her to me. Why this temptation? Where is my Rachel? Where is my child? Her cries filled the entire room. Mr. Vincent tried to hold himself together, but he was broken too. His charming little princess was fighting for her life somewhere, and he didn't even know where. He hugged his wife tightly as she sobbed. Cynthia refused to leave the hospital. She refused to go home. She wanted her daughter brought back to her, safe, alive, and breathing. The headmistress and the class teacher could not go home either. They stood there quietly, wiping their own tears, helpless and guilty. It was getting dark. The school compound was empty, and the roads were beginning to quiet down. Mr. Vincent gently convinced Cynthia to follow him home. She had not eaten, had not rested, and could barely stand anymore. The headmistress begged Mr. Vincent not to take his anger out on the school. They promised to join hands and help search for Rachel. But Mr. Vincent wasn't thinking about anger. He wasn't thinking about blame. He just wanted to get his wife home safely. Going after the school wasn't going to bring Rachel back. Deep down, he blamed himself more than anyone else. He only prayed the man who took Rachel would bring her back alive. Meanwhile, Mr. Collins was still driving at top speed. The police stopped him along the way, but once he showed them the doctor's report and emergency notes, they let him go immediately. He drove for hours, non-stop. By the time he reached his city, night had already fallen. He drove straight to the largest hospital in town. Once he gave them the doctor's notes, the nurses rushed Rachel straight into the operating theater. The surgeon had been about to leave the hospital, but something made him stay a little longer. It was as if God held him back for this moment. He rushed inside to meet the emergency case. In the waiting room, Mr. Collins paced back and forth. His shirt was soaked with sweat. His hands trembled. His mind was racing. His phone kept vibrating nonstop. It was his wife, Naomi, calling again and again. He finally picked up. She sounded upset at first. "Where are you? You told me you were on your way home hours ago." But when he explained everything, her voice changed instantly. Fear replaced her anger. "Which hospital are you in? I'm coming now." Minutes later, Naomi rushed in. She saw him sweating and looking restless. She sat beside him. "Tell me exactly what happened," she said softly. He narrated everything. Naomi felt her chest tighten. She placed her hand over her mouth and breathed shakily. They both waited outside the theater. Time moved slowly, as if the clock refused to turn. Once in a while, a nurse came out to check something, then went back in. Mr. Collins and Naomi fell asleep and woke up several times on the hard hospital chairs. Every minute felt like an hour. And then, the surgeon finally walked out. He wore a small smile. Mr. Collins jumped up instantly. Naomi woke up too. "Doctor, how is she? Please tell me the surgery was successful." Mr. Collins asked anxiously. The doctor smiled wider. "By the grace of God, the little girl is safe. The surgery was successful." Mr. Collins let out a loud sigh of relief. "Thank God. Thank God." Naomi hugged her husband tightly in joy. The doctor gently raised his hand. "Please, reduce your voices. She needs peace and quiet." "Okay, sir. Thank you," Mr. Collins whispered. The doctor continued. "She needs plenty of rest now. She may lose part of her memory for some time, but it will return little by little. She may also find it hard to talk at first. I have given the nurse a list of drugs. Please buy them and give them to her as prescribed. She will need a lot of love and care from both of you." Naomi asked softly, "Can we see her now?" "Yes, but don't disturb her. She needs maximum rest," the doctor said and left. The couple thanked him and rushed into the room. As soon as Naomi saw Rachel lying on the hospital bed, covered in bandages, tears streamed down her face. She broke down immediately, sobbing loudly. Mr. Collins held her and tried to comfort her. Back in Cynthia and Mr. Vincent's city, the headmistress went home with a heavy, heavy heart. She knew Rachel was their only child. She couldn't imagine the pain they were feeling. She blamed the class teacher for being careless. The teacher wanted to defend herself, but she knew nothing she said could excuse the fact that Rachel disappeared under her care. All she could do was pray for Rachel's safety. Mr. Vincent stopped a taxi to take himself and his wife home. He held Cynthia tightly as she cried the whole way. When they reached home, he immediately made phone calls, telling neighbors and friends that his daughter was missing. He wanted to go to the police station, but he couldn't leave his wife alone. Not in this state. Cynthia sat in the living room, feeling weak and empty. It felt like half of her soul had been ripped out. She couldn't understand why such a heavy trial would fall on her family. She didn't blame her husband. She knew it wasn't intentional. But she kept thinking, why today? Why traffic today, of all days? If only traffic had not delayed me, maybe I would have gotten to school before the accident. Slowly, Cynthia stood up and walked toward her bedroom, wiping her tears. "Where are you going, Cindy?" Mr. Vincent asked softly. She didn't respond. She just shook her head and continued walking. She entered the room, knelt beside the bed, and lifted her hands in prayer. "Father, please don't let anything happen to the only child you gave me. Heal her, even though she isn't here with me. Wherever she is, whichever hospital she was taken to, please heal her. I trust you, Lord. In Jesus' name. Amen. From behind her, Mr. Vincent said, Amen loudly. She turned and saw him standing there. He walked to her and held her gently. They were both exhausted, emotionally and physically. They had no appetite. Mr. Vincent took his wife to the bathroom and helped her shower. Afterward, they both went to bed. But sleep refused to come. Too many questions filled their hearts. Who took Rachel? Why did he leave for another city? Was Rachel safe? Would they ever see their daughter again? Neither of them could close their eyes. When Naomi stepped into the hospital room and saw Rachel's condition, her heart broke immediately. Bandages covered the little girl's small body. Tubes ran across her bed. Her tiny chest rose and fell slowly. Naomi burst into tears. Her sobs filled the room. The doctor's warning echoed in Mr. Collins's mind, don't disturb the child to avoid complications. So he gently held his wife and guided her out of the room before she broke down completely. Outside, Naomi leaned on the wall and cried harder. Seeing Rachel like this brought back memories she had buried deep inside her. Years ago, when Mr. Collins married Naomi, she got pregnant for the first time. They were both so excited. They talked about baby names, baby clothes, everything. But just a few weeks later, Naomi had a miscarriage. She cried bitterly and blamed herself, even though she didn't know what caused it. Later, she got pregnant again. This time, she was extra careful. She followed the doctor's instructions like her life depended on it. Finally, she gave birth to a baby boy. They named him Pascal. Mr. Collins and Naomi were overjoyed. Pascal was their light, their hope, their answered prayer. The doctor later told them Naomi would not be able to get pregnant again because of complications. They weren't too worried. They had Pascal. And to them, he was enough. Pascal grew into a brilliant child, smart, lively, full of ideas. Everyone admired him. He became the pride of his parents. But suddenly, things changed. Pascal fell sick. They took him to the hospital, got drugs, and he recovered. But after a few weeks, he fell sick again. This kept happening. Almost every week. Because Mr. Collins had money, they kept buying drugs. But Pascal kept getting worse. Then he started losing weight. That was when Naomi insisted, let's change hospitals. Something is not right. They went to another hospital. The moment they arrived, the doctors rushed Pascal in. It was that serious. After many tests, the doctor called Mr. Collins and Naomi into his office. He closed the door gently and sat down. Your son has leukemia, blood cancer. It felt like the world collapsed on them. The doctor explained that leukemia could be controlled in children, but Pascal's case had reached its peak. He could die at any moment. He advised them to spend their last moments with him. Naomi screamed and cried in the doctor's office. Mr. Collins held her, but he was shaking too. They returned to Pascal's bedside. He looked at them with weak, half-open eyes. They tried to smile so he wouldn't see their pain. Pascal smiled faintly at his mother and held her hand. Then, slowly, his grip weakened. Naomi looked at him. Pascal was gone. She shook him, screamed his name, begged him to wake up, but it was too late. Mr. Collins stood there, tears streaming down his face, watching everything crumble. Now, seeing Rachel lying helpless in a hospital bed brought that memory rushing back. Naomi sobbed harder. Who knows if she's the only child her parents have, just like us. How will they cope without their daughter? She cried into her husband's chest. Mr. Collins rubbed her back gently. Tomorrow morning, I'll go back to her school. I'll try to find her parents. Her name is on her uniform. We will trace them. The next morning, back in Rachel's home, Mr. Vincent woke up early. He sat on the edge of the bed, his eyes empty. He didn't know how to start searching for his only daughter. He decided to go to the police station and report her missing. Just then, his phone rang. It was the school proprietress. She apologized over and over, begged for forgiveness, and promised the school would do everything possible to help find Rachel. Mr. Vincent knew her sudden kindness was driven by fear of losing her school's reputation. But none of that mattered to him. He only wanted his daughter alive. He went to the police station, filed the report, and the police promised to do their best. When he returned home, he thought of going to work, but changed his mind. He needed to be with his wife. She needed him more than ever. As he approached the house, he noticed the front door slightly open. He had told Cynthia to lock it behind him. His heart skipped. Slowly, quietly, he pushed the door open. Back at the hospital, Mr. Collins returned to the room where little Rachel was lying down with his wife, Naomi. Rachel hadn't moved since the surgery. She lay quietly on the hospital bed, dressed in clean white clothes. There was a fresh bandage wrapped around her head, and a faint stain of blood showed through it. Mr. Collins and Naomi sat on the empty bed opposite her, watching her carefully. "She's so beautiful, beautiful and adorable," Naomi whispered, hugging her husband tightly. Mr. Collins nodded. "Yes, she is. Her parents must be blessed to have her. Thank God the operation was successful." He checked the time. It was 1:02 a.m. "My dear, you need to go home and rest. You have to be at work early in the morning," he told his wife gently. Naomi tapped her phone and saw the time. It was already early morning. But she shook her head. "If I go home now, I won't even be able to sleep. I want to stay here with you and the child." Mr. Collins tried convincing her, but she refused. She wanted to stay. He noticed how she kept staring at Rachel with deep affection, the same way she used to stare at Pascal before they lost him. As the hours went by, Naomi slowly fell asleep on her husband's laps. Mr. Collins leaned back against the wall, exhausted. Soon, the soft reflection of the early morning sun slipped into the hospital room, waking both Mr. Collins and Naomi. They were tired, but the first thing they did was check on Rachel. She was still asleep, still quiet, still not opening her eyes. Mr. Collins left the room and went to find the nurse attending to Rachel. "Please, I need the uniform she was wearing before you changed her clothes," he requested. The nurse brought the folded uniform to him. He carried it carefully and went outside to place it neatly on the back seat of his car. The uniform was the only clue he had to trace Rachel's school and her parents. After watching Rachel for a while longer, Naomi realized she was running late for work. She hugged her husband, whispered a prayer for Rachel, and left the hospital. Mr. Collins stayed behind. He tipped the nurse and begged her to watch Rachel closely. Then he walked out of the hospital and headed toward his car. But something strange caught his attention. Both his back tires were flat. He frowned. He didn't notice anything when he came earlier to keep Rachel's uniform. He only had one spare tire. He sighed and decided to walk down the road to look for help. A few minutes later, he returned with another man. Together, they fixed one tire with the spare and patched the second one enough for him to drive. Now it was time for Mr. Collins to travel back to the town where the accident happened, so he could look for Rachel's parents. He started the engine and drove off. As he approached the city, something strange suddenly hit him. He turned around to look at the back seat. The uniform, the very uniform he had placed there, was gone. He blinked, thinking maybe he didn't look well. He stopped the car and checked again. Still nothing. In shock, he stepped on the brakes hard and quickly parked the car on the side of the road. He jumped out and searched the entire car, under the seats, the floor, everywhere. Nothing. He searched the ground around the car. Still nothing. The uniform had vanished completely. Mr. Collins picked up his phone from inside the car and quickly called his wife. When Naomi answered, he asked her, Did you take the school uniform I kept at the back seat? Her reply came instantly. Me? No, I didn't touch anything. I left the hospital before you. Mr. Collins froze. If she didn't touch the uniform, then who did? First the two tires went flat without warning. Now the uniform, the only clue to the little girl's identity, had suddenly disappeared. Something was wrong. Very wrong. He stood beside the car, confused and worried. Meanwhile, when Mr. Collins called his wife, she was at work with her best friend, Diana, who had stopped by to see her. Diana raised an eyebrow playfully. Why is your husband asking about a school uniform? My friend, are you people planning to adopt a child and you didn't tell me? She teased. Naomi gave a weak smile and shook her head. Then she narrated the entire story. How her husband had knocked down a little girl in another city, the emergency surgery, and how they had been caring for her since then. Diana's face changed immediately. From the way Naomi described the girl, she guessed the child was about the age Pascal was before he died. She reached out and squeezed Naomi's hand. This must be bringing back memories of Pascal, she said softly, her voice filled with pity. Naomi blinked hard to stop her tears. Yes, everything about that little girl reminds me of him. Diana nodded slowly. I want to see her. Truly. Let's go together. You said you're leaving in 30 minutes. Yes, Naomi replied. We'll go to the hospital and check if she has woken up. Back at Rachel's home, Mr. Vincent returned from the police station after officially reporting his missing daughter. As he reached the house, he noticed the front door was open. He frowned. He had told Cynthia to close the door before he left. Slowly, he pushed the door open. The sitting room was silent, too silent. He called out softly, Cindy. No answer. He locked the door behind him and walked toward their bedroom. She wasn't there either. Then he went to Rachel's room. He opened the door slowly. There, on the floor, sat Cynthia. She wasn't even blinking. She was holding Rachel's tiny clothes in her hands, staring at them as if they were the last thing keeping her alive. When she saw her daughter's teddy bear, she hugged it tightly to her chest and burst into fresh tears. Her whole body trembled as she cried. Mr. Vincent's heart broke into pieces. He had never seen his wife like this. He walked toward her quietly and knelt beside her. She didn't even notice he was there. Softly, he lifted her from the floor and wiped her tears with his hands. What did the police say? Will they find her? Did they see my Rachel? She cried, her voice shaking. Mr. Vincent swallowed the pain in his throat. I just reported the case, my love. The police promised to do their best. We will find our daughter. But Cynthia's fears exploded again. What if she didn't make it out of the operation room? She asked in a trembling whisper. What if that's why the man who hit her never came to look for us? What if she couldn't finish the sentence. Tears flooded her cheeks again. Mr. Vincent held her shoulders firmly. Cindy, please, don't think like that. Let's not lose hope. We will find her. And she will be okay. He helped us stand up gently. Go and freshen up, he said softly. We'll go out and eat a little. Then we'll go to the hospital. Maybe the man will return there. Maybe we will get answers. Cynthia nodded slowly, still hugging the teddy bear as tears continued rolling down her face. A few minutes later, Cynthia finished showering. She dressed up and left the house with her husband. They arrived at a restaurant, but Cynthia had no appetite. Every little girl who passed by looked like Rachel to her eyes. She couldn't eat. She just sat there quietly, lost in pain. Mr. Vincent ended up packing the rest of the food to take along. They went straight to the hospital afterward, hoping, praying, that the man who carried Rachel might have returned. Back on the road, Mr. Collins stood beside his car, confused and frustrated. He knew his wife well. She was not someone who lied. So who else could have removed the uniform? The flat tires were strange enough. Now the missing uniform made everything feel even more mysterious. But no matter what happened, he had already made up his mind. Uniform or no uniform, I must look for this child's parents, he said to himself. Only God knows what they are going through. He started his car and drove toward the city, toward the place where the accident happened. But the more he drove, the more confused he became. Nothing looked familiar. The first place he stopped to ask questions turned out to be wrong. They told him no accident happened there yesterday. Time was running, and he was losing direction. He thought about going to the police. Then another idea came. Let me go back to the hospital I first took her to. Maybe her parents went there. And with that, he turned around and drove toward the hospital. Meanwhile, Naomi picked up her car keys and left for the hospital with Diana. On the way, Diana asked, "Who do you think took the uniform your husband was talking about?" Naomi shook her head. "I honestly don't know. I never touched it." It felt strange to Diana, but she didn't push the topic. At the hospital, Naomi led Diana to the room where Rachel lay. Rachel was still motionless, still wrapped in bandages, still fighting for her life. Diana gasped softly. "This girl is so cute. I can't imagine what her parents must be going through," she said in a sad voice. Naomi nodded, holding Rachel's tiny hand. "All I want is for her to get better." Suddenly, Naomi felt a slight grip on her fingers. She gasped, "Diana, I think she's waking up." They both bent closer, eyes wide, waiting for Rachel to open her eyes. But before they could celebrate, Rachel's grip suddenly loosened, and her small body began to shake violently, like someone having a seizure. Naomi screamed, "Doctor! Doctor!" She ran out of the room in panic. A nurse rushed toward her. Naomi explained quickly, trembling. The nurse called another nurse to fetch the doctor while she ran into the room to check Rachel. Luckily, the doctor was still in the hospital. He came quickly. He asked Naomi and Diana to stay outside while he attended to Rachel. Naomi immediately called her husband. Her voice was shaky. "It looks like Rachel's condition is getting worse. I'm so scared." Mr. Collins had just arrived at the hospital. He was getting down from his car and was about to lock it when her call came in. From the way she sounded, fear gripped him. He thought the surgery may have gone wrong. He felt weak. He couldn't bring himself to walk into the hospital. He got back into his car and sat there, frozen. Minutes later, he called his wife again. "Any news? Is she okay?" Naomi was almost in tears. "The doctor is still inside. No news yet." Fear began to eat Mr. Collins alive. What if the surgery failed? What if the little girl died? What would he tell her parents? What would he say? What amount of money could ever replace someone's only child? Would they ever forgive him? The questions tormented him until he felt his chest tightening. He couldn't face the parents. Not like this. Not without knowing what was happening inside. Shaking, he turned the key in the ignition. He reversed the car. Then he drove off, leaving the hospital behind. As he drove, he said out loud, "Whoever you are, wherever you are, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I promise I'll do everything to save your daughter. I pray she gets well, and when she does, I'll return her to you. I promise." Back at the city hospital, Mr. Vincent and Cynthia waited and waited. Hours passed, but the man who took Rachel never showed up. Mr. Vincent stepped outside the hospital for some fresh air. His heart felt heavy. His mind was restless. He dialed the police again to ask if there was any new information about his missing daughter. But the police had nothing. No lead. No sighting. No clue. He ended the call and sighed deeply. Just then, something caught his attention. A black jeep with a bull bar drove into the hospital compound, exactly the same description the doctor had given. Mr. Vincent froze. His heart jumped. The driver stepped out briefly, answered a call, then got back into the car. Mr. Vincent watched from a distance. He wanted to run to the car, stop the man, ask questions, beg for answers. But something held him back. Fear, confusion, shock. By the time he finally gathered courage to walk toward the jeep, the car reversed sharply and drove away without even entering the hospital fully. Mr. Vincent's shoulders dropped. He let out a long, painful sigh. He had just missed him. He walked back inside. Cynthia was lying on the waiting seat, looking weak and exhausted. When Mr. Vincent touched her forehead, he felt heat. "Cindy, your temperature is high," he said, worried. She sat up slowly. Her face looked pale and drained. She was breaking down from stress, fear, hunger, and heartbreak. "Please don't do this to yourself. Don't add to our problems," Mr. Vincent begged, holding her hands. Just then, the doctor walked toward them. Mr. Vincent quickly stood and rushed to him. "Doctor, please, my wife, her temperature is very high. She just suddenly fell sick." The doctor walked to Cynthia, touched her forehead, and asked her some questions. She explained how she felt, weak, dizzy, and cold. The doctor nodded gently. "I assure you your daughter is safe. The man who brought her here seemed like a good person. Everything he did was to make sure she survived. Please, don't be too hard on yourself," the doctor said softly, trying to calm her. Then he looked at Mr. Vincent. "Can I see you privately?" "Sure," Mr. Vincent replied. They stepped aside. The doctor sighed and spoke quietly. "Your wife is experiencing trauma. This is the effect of losing a child, especially an only child. Please call any of your relatives to stay with her. If care is not taken, she may harm herself." The words pierced Mr. Vincent like a blade. The doctor wrote a list of drugs and handed it to him. As the doctor turned to leave, Mr. Vincent called him back. "Excuse me, doctor. I want to ask something." "Yes, go ahead," the doctor replied. Mr. Vincent swallowed hard. "The man who brought my daughter here, did he have dark skin and a white beard?" The doctor looked surprised. "Yes, that's exactly how he looked. And he came with a black jeep that has a bull bar. How did you know?" Mr. Vincent stepped back, fighting tears. "Doctor, that man just left this hospital a few minutes ago. I saw him, but I didn't have the courage to confront him." Regret filled his voice. The doctor sighed heavily. "Don't worry. I believe he will come back again. He must be looking for you too. And please, don't tell your wife. She is not emotionally strong right now." With that, the doctor walked away. Mr. Vincent stood there, confused and helpless. He didn't know who to call. Cynthia's only sister lived in London. He felt alone. Slowly, he returned to where Cynthia sat today. He lifted her gently from the bench and walked her to the pharmacy. He bought the prescribed drugs, held her close, and together they left the hospital. When Mr. Vincent and Cynthia got home, he served the food they brought from the restaurant. He begged his wife to eat. She had not eaten for more than 24 hours. But Cynthia just stared at the food, then at the drugs on the table, and tears slipped quietly down her cheeks. Her heart was too heavy to swallow anything. Back at the hospital, the doctor finally stepped out of Rachel's room with a nice. Naomi and Diana rushed toward him with fear in their eyes. "Doctor, please. How is she? Is she okay?" Naomi asked quickly. The doctor smiled softly. "She's fine. She was only reacting to the surgery. She's stable now. You can go inside. She's awake." Naomi held her chest and let out a deep breath of relief. "Thank you so much, doctor." She hurried into the room with Diana. Rachel lay quietly on the bed, a tear sliding from the corner of her eye. She looked confused, scared, and lost. She didn't understand what was happening around her. Naomi's heart broke immediately. She told Diana, "Stay with her. I'll go get something she can eat." A few minutes later, Naomi returned with a plate of food. She helped Rachel sit up slowly, then began feeding her with gentle spoons of food. With every spoon, Rachel ate hungrily. She finished the entire plate. Naomi smiled, a real smile, one she hadn't felt in years. Diana watched quietly and could feel the deep, motherly love pouring from Naomi as she fed the child. They were so lost in the moment that they didn't hear Naomi's phone ringing inside her bag. It was Mr. Collins calling. Mr. Collins was still driving at high speed. He wanted to return and see everything with his own eyes. His phone began to ring again. He stretched to pick it up, but it slipped from his hand and fell into the footwell. He slowed down, grabbed the phone, and answered. Naomi's voice came through. "She's fine. Rachel is okay. She's out of danger." When Mr. Collins heard those words, it felt like someone poured cold water on his burning chest. Relief washed over him. But it was already late, and he had left the city. Still, he drove faster. He needed to see her. Later that night, Mr. Collins finally arrived back in his own city. He drove straight to the hospital. But something strange happened. As soon as he turned off the ignition, he felt like something shifted behind his seat. He turned around, and there it was. Rachel's school uniform, neatly folded, sitting right on top of his backseat. Mr. Collins blinked, thinking his eyes were deceiving him. He quickly came out of the car and opened the back door to confirm. It was truly there. But how? I thought. He couldn't understand anything anymore. He had searched that entire seat earlier. The uniform was gone. Now it was back. He left the uniform inside the car and rushed into the hospital. Inside, Rachel was sleeping soundly. He told Naomi about the uniform suddenly appearing again. Naomi gasped, "Come and show me." They both rushed outside together. But when they opened the car door, the uniform had disappeared again. Gone. Completely missing. Diana and Naomi stared into the empty back seat in shock. "Where is the uniform?" Naomi whispered, trembling. "It was right here. I saw it before coming to call you," she insisted. Mr. Collins shook his head quickly. His voice was breaking. "I'm not mistaken. I left the uniform right here. I saw it with my own eyes before locking the car. How could it vanish? Who put it here? Who removed it? No one else has my keys." He dropped to the ground, gasping for air as if he was suffocating. Naomi stood frozen, speechless, confused, terrified. She couldn't understand anything. Is someone else involved in Rachel's accident? Is there more to this mysterious case than anyone can see? Who could be manipulating everything from the shadows? How did the school uniform disappear and then reappear in Mr. Collins's car, only to vanish again? Could there be deeper forces surrounding this entire situation? Find out in the next episode. Something big is coming. Stay tuned and enjoy the unfolding mystery. If you loved this episode, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share with your loved ones. Your support keeps this story alive. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next episode, and God bless you.